It's not mission accomplished, but it's getting close. The $25 million program to rid Macquarie Island of rabbits and other pests has entered the mopping up stage, with only a handful left. As Fiona Breen reports, new tracker dogs and handlers are replacing hunters who've been on the island for the past 12 months.
This is a crucial get-together on the island's base. Some of these hunters and dog handlers are heading home after 12 months on a track and kill mission searching for rabbits.
We've had some fun and some serious time. We've caught 3 rabbits and had a real ball.
Over that time, they've caught 13.
Set some traps and got that rabbit successfully, and it was fantastic for the dogs to finally have a fresh rabbit as well, not something that's been pulled out of a freezer.
A massive aerial baiting program 12 months ago decimated the rabbit population and appeared to kill all the rats and mice. Seabirds were the unintended victims, with the number of dead now at nearly 1,500. It's now estimated between 3 and 6 rabbits remain. No one's seen one since November.
We've spent an enormous amount of time and money to get to this point, and we're progressing really well. So it's just critical now that we don't let the pressure off those few surviving rabbits and give them a chance to breed up again.
The hills once stripped bare by rabbits are starting to bloom. There has been talk that the hunters might get pulled out a year early, but that's unlikely. Every rabbit must be caught for the program to be successful and for Macquarie Island to return to the wildlife sanctuary it once was. Fiona Breen, ABC News, Macquarie Island.
There may be a setback to the multi-million-dollar program to eradicate pests plaguing Macquarie Island. Mouse droppings were found in a shipping container as cargo was being unloaded. The discovery brought the massive annual resupply of food and equipment to a day-long halt. There was an extensive search on land and on the ship Aurora Australis. Poison baits were also laid around the entire station, but there's been no sign of the stowaway mouse.
We're at a stage where we haven't confirmed mouse eradication from last year's baiting, but things are looking really promising. So any risk of a mouse getting onto the island risks undoing all of the work done so far on eradicating mice.
In the future, the Antarctic Division will consider using a detector dog to check for rodents before cargo leaves its Hobart depot. There's an amazing transformation taking place halfway to the Antarctic on the World Heritage listed Macquarie Island. A pest eradication program coordinated by Tasmanian Parks and Wildlife appears to be succeeding. Hills once devastated by a plague of 150,000 rabbits are recovering and more seabirds are nesting. Fiona Breen is on Macquarie Island.
Across the island, there's strong evidence the $25 million eradication program is already successful. Hillsides once covered in eroding rabbit burrows are blooming.
I've been coming to the island for many years and I saw the decline of the vegetation over a number of years as the rabbits were increasing, and it's really quite impressive to see just how much the vegetation's improved.
The plants most obviously responding to the changed conditions are the endemic Macquarie Island cabbage and the tall tussock grass. Leaves normally nibbled to their base are now in full bloom and seedlings litter the landscape.
It's just vegetation growing everywhere. Even on the plateau where I haven't seen cabbage plants before, they're just starting to shoot up now, so it's been a real surprise for me.
For many of the regular expeditioners, it's an amazing change and a welcome sight.
It's really exciting because my job hasn't been all doom and gloom like it has been in the past, so it's really satisfying and encouraging.
With new growth comes new wildlife. More seabirds are nesting and successfully breeding. Biologists report seeing higher numbers of chicks in the past 12 months than they've seen in years. Fiona Breen, ABC News, Macquarie Island.
Macquarie Island's reputation as a wildlife sanctuary is on the way back. A massive pest eradication program appears to be succeeding, with the flora and fauna returning. Fiona Breen is on Macquarie Island.
King penguins are one of the species of seabirds unaffected by the massive pest eradication project. In fact, numbers are thriving around the island, particularly now that rats aren't taking any of their eggs. They're also well and truly recovered from the oil industry days, when they too were targeted by sealers. Biologists believe the numbers are probably higher than they were even before the oil industry. This population at Green Gorge is particularly healthy. There are hundreds of fluffy brown chicks. It's another success story in the complicated history of this wildlife sanctuary halfway to Antarctica. Fiona Breen, Green Gorge, Macquarie Island.
On an isolated strip of land at 54 degrees south, halfway to Antarctica, there's a lot going on. Teams of people and their dogs are hiking up the steep slopes and across the wet lowlands of Macquarie Island, searching for pests. Sometimes colonies of penguins, elephant seals or seabirds are their only companions. One team has finished up, another has just begun. It's a difficult job in a challenging environment, but most find it hard to leave, as Fiona Breen reports.
It's a bittersweet handover. After nearly a year working together across Macquarie Island, some tight partnerships are being broken.
Sit.
Good. Not looking forward to leaving this fella behind, but...
Gary Bocock, or Doggo as he's known on the island, will be leaving behind his terrier Tamar.
We've had some fun and some serious time. We've caught 3 rabbits and had a real ball.
A veteran hunter and dog handler, he's a senior member of the Macquarie Island pest eradication team. He joined just before a massive aerial baiting program and has spent the past 9 months walking the length and breadth of the island, searching for the remaining rabbits.
Found another fresh dead one, and you know what it's all about, and the excitement of the chase and the rabbits and everything, and yeah, they know what it's all about.
It's the end of the team's role in the project and time to say goodbye to their companions.
He's a small dog, but he has small man's disease. He sort of thinks he's the boss all the time, and he will snap at the other dogs, but they sort of tolerate him because he's small. Yeah. But his general nature is pretty friendly.
The Aurora Australis has brought a new team of hunters and dog handlers.
His personality, he is being a Labrador, typical Labrador, loves his food, loves his pats, will run up to anybody for a pat and a hug. Noticed a few times that if he gets a little bit overexcited, he'll run off and totally miss where he's going and fall into a seal wallow.
In total, 13 rabbits have been caught in the past 12 months. It's thought there are between 3 and 6 left.
The last rabbit sighted was around about from memory, about the 18th of November 2011, and that was a lactating doe that was found, and subsequently 4 kittens were found in nearby burrows. So that period in mid-November was the last seen.
For Program Manager Keith Springer, it's been a good year.
The job just gets much harder when there's so few. So the team of about 15 hunters with the dogs have been looking for several months now, and they haven't found any fresh sign of a rabbit. So that's an indication of the level of effort that's going in, and not yet finding signs of those very small number of remaining bunnies.
Long known for its rugged beauty and amazing wildlife, Macquarie Island's reputation has taken a battering over the past decade. The hills were badly eroded by a plague of rabbits, and its wildlife harassed by rats and mice. It appears the eradication program has stopped an ecological disaster in its tracks.
There's been remarkable ecosystem recovery on the coastal slopes and inland areas on the island. What we're seeing is sites that have been grazed heavily in the past are coming back. There's vegetation on them. And other areas, the tussocks are coming back quite extensively, and they're very difficult now to walk through. So it's wonderful to see that.
Ecologist Dana Bergstrom has been visiting the island for 30 years. In the 6 months since her last visit, it's visibly changed.
The very large plants are coming back. What's called Stilbocarpa polaris, this is known here as Macquarie Island cabbage. We're seeing a lot of seedlings. The It's a mega herb, and another mega herb, the pleurophyllum, is a large daisy. We're seeing many seedlings of those all over the island. The short grasses, Agrostis magellanica, we're now seeing fields in massive flowering states, which is really, really exciting.
There have been unintended victims of the eradication project. 1,500 seabirds have died from eating bait-ridden rabbit carcasses. The dead birds include 380 rare northern giant petrels and 21 endangered southern giant petrels. No species has been wiped out. While many found the deaths hard to deal with, most on the island believe the long-term benefits outweigh the casualties. It appears there's more birds nesting. Bree Hunter has been monitoring seabirds.
The amount of burrows of certain species has increased. Before, they were only known on certain areas of the island, so the number of sites is increasing. The density of burrows within the sites that were already there is increasing, and also just the breeding productivity is increasing. So more chicks, and more chicks are fledging, whereas in the past most of the eggs failed, or they're predated upon by rats.
It's not just the birds. On a trip across the island, there was evidence of more life at the minute level.
It's an entire ecosystem response, and one of the things that's really exciting is that we're seeing gossamer slopes covered in spider webs, and that's something I've never seen in the last 20 or 30 years that I've been coming to the island. A lot of the invertebrates, the native invertebrates, are coming back in bounds.
Not long after the dog handover, all the good work looked to be in jeopardy. Mouse droppings were found in a container dropped on the island during the resupply. Keith Springer was halfway down the island when the bad news came through.
And our priorities will be to ensure that we do the appropriate quarantining processes to avoid any survival of mice on the island.
At the station, the resupply was stopped, and dogs searched the ship and the station for mice.
Well, we're at a stage where we haven't confirmed mouse eradication from last year's baiting, but things are looking really promising. So any risk of a mouse getting onto the island risks undoing all of the work done so far on eradicating mice. So it poses a risk to the success of the project.
No more rodent evidence was found. It was a reminder to the new eradication team about just how important their job is. It'll be a tough job though for this team, trying to track down such low numbers. In any month, they'll each spend 28 days out in the field searching. Despite the apparent success so far, the eradication program won't ease up. Another group of hunters will follow this one next year until every last rabbit is caught. There's optimism that all the effort and all the money spent will be worth it, and Macquarie Island will once again become the flora and fauna sanctuary it once was. For one man who spent so much time on the island, it's a sad goodbye, but he's happy to be leaving on a good note.
As human beings, we stuffed this up, and now, as human beings, we're fixing it up, which is really good. And to be part of that is really neat.
The remote sub-Antarctic Macquarie Island is known for its rich and diverse wildlife. Some of its most vulnerable are the fur seals that call it home. 200 years since sealers wiped out the island's 3 species, their future is still uncertain, and it appears climate change is their next big hurdle. For scientists who have been monitoring these populations over the past 26 years, there's also uncertainty as their research funding hangs in the balance. Fiona Breen reports from Macquarie Island.
The trek to fur seal breeding grounds on Macquarie Island is steep and precarious. It's a daily journey fur seal researchers have been taking every summer for 26 years.
When you spend 6 months here, yeah, you know every rock, you know each animal individually, and You pick out favourites.
He's been observing behaviour, counting pups and tagging new arrivals.
Some are quite patient, some not at all. Some are quite playful and some not at all. This beach in particular, this area has a lot of quite playful juvenile subantarctic animals, and it's been great to just interact and watch them in the pools playing.
It's the end of breeding season, so most of the seals have left the island. But even at its peak, the population is a fraction of what it was 200 years ago.
The first pup born since sealing was born in 1954, 55. And between then and the early 1970s, there are only between 1 and 5 pups born.
In the late 1700s, fur seals on Macquarie Island became victims of a fashion fad.
It was a luxuriant coat. They've got 2 layers of hair, a fine underfur which is incredibly dense and was very, very valuable. Incredibly valuable item used for all sorts of clothing, garments, hats, gloves.
Sealing teams collected 200,000 skins.
They really hit the jackpot when they came here, and they unloaded men and supplies immediately to start sealing straight away, and then headed back to Sydney and loaded up with more supplies and men. And then it only took them about 10 years to completely wipe out the fur seal population here.
They're protected by Macquarie Island's World Heritage status and are still one of its most vulnerable animals.
When I started the work here started coming down here in the mid-80s, there were about 30 pups born, and this season we've had about 260 pups born. So it's been a slow recovery, about a 6% increase per year over that time.
Scientists say there's little doubt that the population will continue to slowly recover, but the next big unknown is climate change. Warming oceans are also having a negative effect on breeding success and growth rates.
These animals are incredible at integrating information about oceanographic and climate change. So we're seeing major fluctuations in breeding success and diet associated with very subtle changes in ocean temperature in the main feeding grounds. And so that's proven to be an incredible time series. We've now got 25 years of data showing that.
Another population challenge was thrown up by a unique adaptation to their dire circumstances. The island's 3 different species, the Antarctic, subantarctic and the New Zealand fur seals, started interbreeding.
Molecular work that we've done has identified that back in the early 90s we had hybridisation levels of over 30%, and over the last 15 or so years that's reduced down to about 17%.
Even with 260 pups this season, their future continues to hang in the balance.
It wasn't hugely increased on last year, and that's alarming. There's a correlation between food availability and it's mixed in with climate change, and it's so dynamic. We want to know what's going on.
Scientists are worried they might not find out. Future funding is uncertain. Under a new system, all scientists have had to reapply for Antarctic Division grants. The fur seal team say their application has inexplicably been ranked lower than previous years.
It's one of the longest running vertebrate monitoring programs in the Southern Ocean and Antarctica, supported by the Australian Antarctic Division. And we think it's an incredibly valuable project. We'd like to see it continued, but I guess in that sense we're hanging in the balance a bit here at the moment, whether or not we're going to get future support to keep the program running.